So this is collection of sayings of the Buddha compiled later on by a great practitioner called Dharmapada, and this is sometimes called Tibetan Dhammapada, because Dhammapada is some people see the Dhammapada, which is a collection of sayings of the Buddha's own words, promoted as like Bible. They think if there is one book the Buddhism people should read, they should the Dhammapada. So the Dhammapada is the book, and it was translated in the West many years ago. Then when scholars looked for whether that Dhammapada was widespread or not, they realized it wasn't translated into Tibetan. And only someone in the 1940s translated it into Tibetan. Of course, the translator is a very well-known Tibetan scholar called Gendik Chompel. He didn't call the Dhammapada as something that didn't exist. He just translated it because the exact text wasn't there. But in Tibetan Buddhism, in the collection of Buddhist texts, we have a text called Udānavarga. Udānavarga is a collection of sayings, which we read last week. Is Udānavarga is specific, deliberate topics that actually focus on the very thing, and then maybe 20-30 verses are dedicated on each of the topics. So there are actually about 36 of them, but good 40% of them are found in the collection called Dhammapada. So hence, because it's not quite completely same as Dhammapada, but nevertheless share at least 40% of those very verses exactly same. And then when they translated this, they call it Tibetan Dhammapada. So that's what we started last week, reading the first topic or first chapter. First chapter is on impermanence, and we read through the first 20 verses, and we're going to continue the rest tonight. I'm reading the Tibetan because, and then I'm translating. Kepa Pume Nam Ki Rik Gyatan Tondra Mambotan Longe Lekper Dubayan Chida on the Dovarin Cure. He says, meaning, though many men and women properly and assiduously acquire hundreds and thousands of material possessions, and they may do many things, yet they all fall into the power of the Lord of Death. And no matter what they have become, great collectors, they have acquired and collected and hoarded so much wealth and knowledge and skills or whatever, no matter how much they accomplish, eventually all their accomplishments end to themselves becoming subject to the fall under the prey of death, prey of Lord of Death, Lord of Death. So this really means even if you didn't achieve very much, you should never worry what you didn't achieve. Because even you achieve, they all have to be given to the Lord of Death anyway. So you have to leave them all almost like you have no say what happens to them. And so why are people enslaving themselves, try to achieve or acquire or hoard so much, when the very things they have are not going to be anything useful for them, but only the karma they created to acquire them, to hoard them, to fight for them against their friends or against their loved ones. Those karma will ripen on the individuals, but the material possessions themselves will be completely left behind. So therefore, what is the reading teaching there is, we should not be too sad or upset even if we lost things, because eventually we're going to lose anyway, so we might as well lose before we did. At least we might be free when we did to become attached to. We are free from attachment after death. But before death, if you saw loss, people go bankrupt, people lose home, people lose loved ones, people lose possessions. For a person who understands these teachings, they should not take it literally saying, what's wrong with me? This happens to everyone who have acquired like a big, create a big empire also, they have to leave it behind. So that's why one shouldn't be too hard on ourselves for not accomplishing some things. Even if you accomplish everything, you think somebody swindled and robbed, but Lord of Death will do all of that anyway. So this time maybe it's your uncle, like Milarepa's case. His uncle robbed all his wealth. And he thought he could go back and get all of that back. But then later on he realized what a futile effort that is. Eventually, what he realized, for a little plot of land he killed 18 people. He said, what the hell I've done myself? So therefore one should not be too attached with material possessions, or things, or people, even children, even loved ones. There will be a time that you alone will have to go. You will never be able to take them even one step. They may go as far as the graveyard and maybe visit there with the flowers, but that's about it, So therefore, this is a very important teaching, so that we do make preparations, not only of the death, but even when things do not manifest, does not last long in our hand or possession or power. We should not lament and feel bad. That's the nature of all things. Now this next 21 is Sakpa Kunji Tanzijing. These are called 4 ends, they call it. The end of investments is squandered. Sakpa Kunji Tanzijing. Langwe Tanen Gewalu. End of what has been raised or will collapse. Sakpa Kunji Tanzijing. And Tipa Tanen Dawade. End of all meeting is parting. And Sombe Tanen Chiwayin. End of all birth is death. So why we should be surprised when all your savings, all your earnings, all your investment become completely go bankrupt or whatever, all goods all robbed. It shouldn't be surprised that eventually that's anyway. No matter how much you have built, building or institution or organizations or whatever, all will collapse. One day it will all collapse. And it's not a tragedy, it's the nature of things. And all meeting is separation. Everything we meet somebody or whatever, we shouldn't think it very seriously, it's mine or like that. They're all meant to be, eventually it's parting. So they wanted to stay long, but they can't. We wanted to keep them long, but we can't. So it's not a fault of them or us that we couldn't be with them. It's the nature of all things, all meetings parting. Those who are first difficult to meet, but as soon as they meet, they have to part. And everybody crying when they're parting. But when they're together, they're quarreling. So might as well part. No wonder why people part, because they're not better together. Better together, so parting. So it's not because of one person's fault. It's just lots of takes 2 or more causes a condition for the parting to take place. So we shouldn't think who is responsible and who is the culprit on these, and then try to punish each other for more. It's just ridiculously unhelpful. So, some partings are, looks like very, very unkind to us, but it's inevitable. According to Buddhism, that's Buddha's teaching. It's inevitable. Sure, I'm sure we can part nicely. I don't think there's any parting parties. I don't know why there aren't parting parties. They have got engagement parties, they have marriage parties. Why don't have parting parties? I think we should invent one. Not many people will do, but just at least part them well. Parting parties, yes, it will be interesting. Usually parties are all about partying. They're all there for a few hours, after that they all disperse, So how long does party last? Not very long, really. Does not last very long. Those are 4 endings. This very famous Buddhist ending. These 4 endings called. All accumulation is exhaustion, or there is build or collapse, all that met part, all that's born dead. And anything in between is pretty much obvious, Everything in between will happen, And so we can be kind towards each other instead of thinking he left me, abandoned me, or like that. They have multitude of reasons why they can't hold on to it. If it's for their benefit, they will. If it's good serving their benefits, if they're happy with the continuation, they would. But there must be some unmentionable reason why they are suffering in the togetherness. If they're suffering in the togetherness, it is definitely the one who decided to part must have more suffering than one who wanted to hold on to. Just timing wasn't right for the other one, but the other one may have kept in that long enough to feel it's just untenable. So have kind compassion to those when they do part. They must have so many pain and suffering that they must part. If you do that, you don't feel abandoned. You feel liberated. At least I have liberated their suffering by me not clinging onto them. You see? This is amazing teaching. This points you what to do that is safe and wise and intelligent, Then there is no animosity. The poor person put 12 years in your life, but now it's no longer working for him or her, and so they don't want to waste the rest of time in that situation. So actually we should simply let them go and have no animosity. So this is the whole important thing, is just not just saying everything meet together or part, don't worry about it. It means don't develop anger and resentment that they did part you, they did leave you, or did not stay, or didn't last long. It's all the fruits fall from the branch of the tree unless you pick on time. So unless you can have a parting party. It will be, people will leave, and it's not their fault, it's they are themselves suffering. 23, Sonta Chiva Impermanence, it says, since as end of life is death, all living beings die. Now this is what I was talking before. That so likewise do virtue and non-virtue bear fruits which follow after the deeds. So if you really wanted to complain about the ending of things, he says that the karma that you create for sake of others or even for the sake of yourself will follow you wherever you go. There is no ending of that. That will definitely roll over, and it will come with a more fruit than you didn't realize it was happening. So therefore, the karma will follow you like a shadow of the bird. Wherever a bird goes, it will follow. Likewise, whether even if you good deeds you perform for them, you thought you did for them, the benefit will follow you. Even if you did bad deeds against them, bad deeds and effects will not follow them, but follow us, because whoever created it. So it's when we do the good deeds that we like to do, we don't want it to be patient, we were impatient. It looks like we did what we like, but later on we will get the consequence that we don't like. So therefore, we may like what we want to say, we want to do what we want to do now, but the consequences there will be quite opposite. So that's why it shouldn't be tempted to do non-virtuous things, even though it feels right, feels obvious thing you can do. But if you can forbear the hardships now, then peace will follow you. if you engage in kind of combatant mode of fighting and conflicting, even though you may even gain victory in the worldly conventional sense, but later on you will be defeated by it. You thought you were doing a wonderful thing, but the consequence of what you did was just awful. So that's why impermanence of the deed, the deed felt right at the time. You felt like you want to get out of your chest. You felt so good, but later on you really wish you never said that. And that is what it's talking about. What the impermanent of uplifting or righteous feeling at the time, but later on you wish you never said it or did it, and so that's the impermanence. So we could be easily sort of swayed by things, reactions, overreactions, but the consequences of our overreaction will hurt us in the long run, because that will follow us like the flying bird. Dikpeli ki nyalwatang sonam shepe dendrote henda kin lam gombe same nyang denyu they were 24. So bad deeds result in hell, they call it. If one does do bad deeds such as violence and so on, whether physical violence or verbal violence or mental ill will, or these things not only will end oneself in hell in the next life, but also will be hell, will create unhappiness, distress and sorrow and stress in this life, which is already hell. Sonam chepe dendrotes, meaning that they who are virtuous will have happiness thereafter. So meaning though creating virtuous things may not be not that necessarily pleasurable at the time, but actually the effect of that will be meritorious, beneficial for oneself. They who observe the right way, meaning those people who observe the right way, means the way of the Buddha, where means instead of resorting to aggression and retaliation, one practice tolerance and compassion by resorting to that way, because they are observing the right way, even though feel like retaliating, but you want to actually practice patience, they will attain uncontaminated nirvana. Meaning nirvana means peace. You will actually find peace. People who are patient sleep well, and they don't regret they practice patience. And they rejoice they practice patience. They believe in the virtue of practicing patience. So they actually have little nirvanas all the time. Little sort of peace and joy and gratitude consistently. Kaya sanje ran sanje namji nyento jang kulun dena ponzena kyo thawa mejigo. So this is talking about if even the Buddhas, Shakyamuni Buddha, Parteka Buddha, such as many of the disciples of Buddha, as well as Shravakas, like Arhats, many Arhats, cast off their bodies, meaning they too have no power but to leave their mortal body. It is needless to speak of ordinary people. So think about the death, that there's even the most powerful yogis and practitioners, they too had no choice but to give in to the law of death. And the fact that they actually gave in to the law of death was mainly an indication that even their spiritual power are not above the law of death and impermanence. And their body is composite, compounded aggregates. Anything that is produced are impermanent. Since their body is a production of the element of the parents and so on, they necessarily will collapse. So therefore, one should not think why I'm dying, why I'm weak, why I got this disease. One shouldn't think like that, I hate illness, I hate being sick. One should, if that's the case, don't be born. Don't be born next time. And if you hate sickness, don't be born. So simple as that. But this time it's a bit too late. So therefore, instead of saying, I hate illness, I hate sickness, and so on, one should see, even enlightened ones showed the sign of giving into the aging and death. passing away. So, of course, it's a person like me who has a lot of karma and afflictions. Of course, I'm subject to death anytime. You don't have to be poor to die. You don't have to be sick to die. You don't have to be in prison to die. You don't have to be kicked by people to die. You could be sitting there and dead. So the cause for reason to die is very, very many. A reason to stop the death is hardly any, except non-birth. If one is not born, then there will be no birth. And there is not a place where death is not found. Not in the sky, not amidst the sea, not even if one enters into the clefts of the mountains. So there is not a single place you could go and hide from death. There's not a single direction or place or city. There's not a single hideout or even inside the deep down ocean or even in the moon or people try to go to the moon or Mars. People, before you get there, you might die. And not even in the mountains. There's not even in the caves. You get there, but then you realize you have no supplies in the cave. Then you'll be dead. You'll be dead because of starvation. So there's not a single place you can go and sneak and escape from death. So it's in terms of location, there's not a single place you can go. You can't go. The people who live in East can't go to the West and seek, escape death. People can't go from high position to ordinary positions, famous position to the sort of non-famous positions, rich to poor. There's not a single thing you can do that death will not find. Means means all who came and all who will come abandon their body and depart. Depart. So he says, the wise man who understands that his body is to be dreaded, life of purity, live the life of purity according to the law. So this is talking about the Dharma. If you live your life according to Dharma, in a pure way of not being too greedy, not being too angry over things, not being too deluded over things. These are mainly three things: free of ignorance, desire, hatred. Of course, one can't entirely be free of them, but at least try to reduce one's greed, reduce one's anger, reduce ignorance. And if you did that, then no matter how much you are subject to death, you will not be clinging to permanence, because there is no permanence to cling to. So it's good to know there is no permanence of the body. This body is to be dreaded. So even at the moment of death, or even you suffer from illness or old age, you wouldn't mentally suffer this because you're going through old age. Physically, you may be struggling to stand up or do things, but your mind doesn't suffer with it because you're not attached to body as me or permanent thing, which is really great blessings. This real no suffering because you are not attached to things. It doesn't mean you're not losing things, but you can't lose things you're not attached to. So you're attached to it, you feel like losing, but you're not attached to it, you're becoming free from that. So actually the way to live the Dharma is not losing yourself. If you live according to Dharma, then there's no losing. Nothing is losing. Even your status, you're stripped of power, you're stripped of position, you still, that's inevitable anyway. So sooner or later you're going to give up anyway. But in the meantime, there is no angst, no animosity, no attachment to the things. That's a real way living according to Dharma. That's a real living. You're living a pure life, lives a life of purity according to the law. The law here is to the Dharma. Dharma means that is reliable to hold. A vehicle, like a vehicle. If you have the vehicle, it will always save. It will take you somewhere safe. If you are not in to turn to the Dharma, you will be stuck. You'll be stranded. Yeah. Then when you lost the thing, you were stripped of the power or whatever. You don't have health then you feel really miserable because you don't have the law. You don't have the reliable vehicle. One who has the Dharma, refuge, is one who is predisposed to think that way, and he knows that is the fact. It's not a tragedy to lose. It's a tragedy to get attached to. So, attachment is a tragedy. Losing is not a tragedy. It's inevitable. So next time you should tell each other, there's a tragedy in me. Why? I'm still attached to this. So then you're really thinking according to Dharma wise, Because if you physically lose something, it's not a tragedy. It's just maybe they meant to get it. If you lost it, they got it. So maybe it's not a tragedy to them. So tragedy to whom? One who's attached to is a tragedy. And particularly if you really want them to have, it's not a tragedy, it's a joy to give. So when is giving joy and when is giving tragedy? When the childish are attached to it, then for them to give is a tragedy. For the wise to give is a living, Is a giving is a real living. Because he's not tragically suffering, he's not dreaded by death of his Dharma. He's dreaded by the nature of impermanence. That's not a tragedy. It's a universal law. So, then everybody should be crying all the time because they're all affected uniformly in just different level. So those who are crying and carrying on about, they are tragedy, really attached. Yeah, that's really. Because if you can make your emotion impermanent, that's a great plus. That's the way of Dharma. If you're attached to ephemeral possessions as things, as real, as permanent, that's a tragedy. That's why they have to devote a whole chapter on this impermanence. Not because they wanted to make you feel grim and somber and not have a nice evening. It's actually to wake us up. Wake us up. It's a tragedy to get attached to. Tragedy to have enmity. It's why we practice loving kindness. We should practice loving kindness to whom or to what actually hurts us most. That is real loving kindness. Loving kindness to someone that's nice to us is not loving kindness. It's attachment. So one has to really predispose Dharma. Understand Dharma. That he lives, that person lives a life of purity. Purity means according to Dharma. His mind is thinking according to Dharma, which is logical, factual, rational, and beneficial. It's not a blind faith. Dharma is not blind faith. It completely opens your eyes, and still it really checks. Do you really want to open the eyes? Yes, please, open the eyes. Yeah. Of course, to gain sight when you can't see is a great gift, but it's even better. We can predispose Dharma, dharmically. Develop a predisposition of the Dharma is living pure. Then you wouldn't mourn and groan, thinking you lost something. Yeah, you feel liberated, devoid of attachment, and you feel powerful to give it for a good cause. Let go. Then you have the dignity to give and let go for what is good. It's real. It's like flying. It's real freedom, real joy. Gawa tōhin neki dōngā tāng Seeing old age, pain of disease, semdanteve, hiwa tonene, and death of the heedless people. The teachers, Shakyamuni, gave up home that is like a prison. But how can common of mortals cast off their desires? Now this is talking about how the Buddha, by seeing the old age and sickness and various partings and losings and not gettings and not happy with what they have and all that, he says Buddha sees the sentient beings not only suffering from old age and sickness, but devoid of their mind with themselves. They're not with their mind. They're completely devoid of their mind. They're deprived of their mindfulness. Beautiful word. This one, it's actually saying that the death due to heedlessness. That death due to heedlessness is a real death every day. The old normal death, at least end of the life, that's at least acceptable. But death of heedlessness is often. That's the biggest suffering. Therefore, Shakyamuni Buddha, seeing the home as a prison, he gave up that because worldly homemaking, worldly guarding and hoarding material possessions, the home and wealth is actually a prison. Who want to go to prison? I mean, the one who's condemned by law go to prison, but one who's condemned by his attachment is go to prison by his attachment. So, who the heedful one shouldn't go to the prison by his own attachment? The ordinary common folk aren't able to know this difference. How themselves are condemning to this prison of attachment, prison of resentment, prison of anger, prison of self-doubt and all of that. That's actually, Buddha deliberately left the palace because he's attached to it. He wasn't attached. He could see them as worthless. He doesn't want anything to do with it, and he would be happy without anything. But he did so to show people that these things are not worth putting so much effort and energy and then cause so much suffering to oneself and everybody else. So nobody is better by getting the things they're fighting for. They're actually putting in more of another prison. Prison of attachment, prison of victory, prison of righteousness is difficult. Buddha deliberately left his palace because palace is very pleasurable, very comfortable. And so does people also think the victory or name or power, they think is enjoyable, but they don't realize how completely harmful or corrosive that is. Because to show that did the Buddha left his home, not because he didn't care for his family and people, it's not because it didn't look good. People thought Buddha was heartless, or he wasn't kind, or he was selfish, or why would any man do that type of thing? His vision wasn't to wake up the heedless, not just people of then, because then people didn't have many distractions. Nowadays people got all sorts of glittering objects, so many things, and they're all imprisoned by these things. He had the vision then that sentient beings would be lost in this material pursuit and condemn themselves to the prison of endless samsaric work activities and never satisfiable by no matter how much sweet they eat, no matter how many drink they drink, no matter how many cruise they go to, never enough, never come home satisfied. They become even more dissatisfied. Sentient beings are self-condemned in the prison of their attachment, condemned by their own attachment. Trawan jigs. Yavashing the Trawan jigs. Even the most brilliant chariot of the king gets wrecked. Deshin Lujan Yavar Gavadu. The body, likewise, this body, however strong and robust may look, also draws nigh to old age. Dhambanam yi chun de dhambade micho hiendo chijing gaminju. Wow. It says, who teaches others this best of all good laws? It says, this is the teaching, best of all good laws, shall not know old age. Yeah, he or she knows this Dharma, he will not be aged by loss or by parting. These things, he will not be aged. He will not cry over things, worldly things. People get aged by these things. They get aged by their attachment more than the year they live. You know. So those people who have the possession of this best of all laws, Dharma, whether they read it and not just read it, but read it carefully and just couldn't believe this. Such one line has such a piercing, penetrating pith instruction to us. You know, shall not know old age. Yeah? He will not be deterred by old age. He will not be deterred by partings. He will not be deterred by even sickness or death. They will occur, but that doesn't hurt his pride. He will not lament and mourn and groan and complain. Because he knows that's not the real cause of death. Real cause of death is heedlessness. Heedlessness, clinging to impermanent things as permanent, and satisfactory things as a satisfactory. Yeah? Non-self as a self, unreal as real. Shiny, glittering object is actually a hollow, nothing in there, is just chasing things after that. These are real aging cause. These are real cause of death. Now, this teaching on impermanence, you can never read enough or reflect enough and you get bored. It's so true that we do not have sufficient realization to think, predispose ourselves in this attitude. You wouldn't believe once you have that, you will not know old age. You will not know defeat. You will not know any problems. All those problems come from clinging. If you are not clinging, you will not suffer from aging and loss or defeat. This defeat is caused by a person who wanted to gain, who wanted to possess, who wanted to own, who wanted to become slave, actually. Who wanted to become slave to them, who wanted to be imprisoned by themselves. And they're crying because they couldn't imprison themselves. So those who understand Dharma, those who have the possession, those who have heard the best laws, you know, and even the kind of civilized world, there's a bit of order. That's because there's a law. You know? There's a law that has been contested and checked carefully how it works for best for everybody. You know. But what if there was a law of that works for the mind? That's exactly what he's talking about here. You will not know any tragedy. You will not know any aging or disease or incurable diseases if you have got this teaching up your sleeves. Gawa kyunen lunshingen, all old age, you are foolish and despicable. Kyunen mirik chepade, only doing on things that are improper. So now, you know, the teacher is just fighting against the old age. You don't even this beautiful body, you know, even you destroy even this beautiful body, you know. So that's a nice way to look at it, you know. How talking about like I have a quarrel with old age, you know. Why do you do this? You know, I have a very strong, tall body. Why you make me bend and crooked and what is, And old age, you're so careless, so pitiless, merciless. They talk about that Lord of Death having no mercy, merciless Lord of Death. Yeah. Yes, you're so pitiless and merciless, uncompassionate, heartless. How can you do this? Why are you so good at doing all these terrible things? Even this beautiful body that we take great liberty to keep it so strong and healthy and fed and wise and clean, you just destroy in no time. How dare you do such a thing? So of course sometimes when you think about that, people cry because things are impermanent. Of course, this is exactly what this author is trying to make us feel, as how awful old age is. But actually more awful is that it ages us to attachment. That ages us more. That makes us sleepless more. That makes us to do terrible childish things more than the actual aging and impermanence. You see, this is the trick here. This is the teaching here. Pointing, when you read this, it's actually looking at from that point of view. Kashi lone gyarsowa means one may live 100 years. Theyan shida nigiti. Yet he is still subject to be taken away by Lord of Death. So, there's no special treatment for those who live 100 years. They don't have a special bunker. That Lord of Death couldn't find it. Did I govern you on? Yana nawam chiven joms, Yana nawam chiven joms. One may reach old age, or else he is destroyed by disease, So even though you might live 100 years, but still you can have disease and other things can happen before that. So you can't count on having 100 years. Even 100 years, you still will have to meet with the Lord of Death. So that's why what it does mean is, when you think of the impermanence, you will try to shorten the duration of attachment and anger and worry. That's the idea. If you remember impermanence, when you shorten you will be time poor to worry. Very good one. That time poverty is very good. I have no time to worry. I have no time to be angry. I have no time to get attached to. I'll be dead, could be in any day. Very good, That practitioner should think like that. Couldn't be bothered giving a lot of time for that. Because it is wasting your time. If you go, most people age by attachment rather than the time they're actually spending. That's a real teaching, is where you know that the real aging is caused by attachment. People age very quickly when they're angry, when they're upset, when they're angry, or when they're angry at someone or something, or didn't get what they want and they're really miserable. Then they age very quickly. They might buy cream, they may buy all sorts of things to keep them young, but completely pointless. They have no anti-aging cream, but they don't have. The Dharma is the best anti-aging cream. It doesn't come in a bottle. It doesn't come in a bottle. It is come in a book like this. You read these things, and then you can really feel refreshed and youthful and strong, because you know the truth. You know the truth. He who is always going on and on without ceasing, fearful both day and night. There's never a moment he's afraid. Not afraid. Daytime he's afraid. Nighttime he's afraid. Alone is afraid. With others he's afraid. With wealth is afraid. Without wealth is afraid. With friends is afraid. Without friend is afraid. Wow. He says, filled with anguish of birth and death and this and that, is like the fish thrown into the hot water or in the dry sand. Just you can see those people do the fishing. They think they're having good catch or something. No idea what they're causing to little helpless creatures. Yet people think they have a good catch. We ourselves are like a fish in the dry sand. One is afraid of death. One is afraid of aging. One is afraid of losing. One is afraid of parting. Yeah, you're already in the sand. You're always fearful. So fear and anxiety and sadness and depression, all these things comes from lack of realization of impermanence and death. How fragile and how fragile our body is. The lamp that has oil and a strong wick can burn, but if the wind blows, it could go off any time. Like that. We might be strong, we might be this, but if lifespan can be interrupted by any unfortunate circumstances. So therefore, don't ever think of anything but all fear comes from clinging to non-existing permanent things. Think you can cling on to something, but fear comes from clinging. Fear of losing the thing. If you know you will lose, you don't fear. You just prepare. You prepare. What's going to happen? Say your car registration is going to run out on the 3rd of May. You don't just fear from now onwards. You just get re-registered a week before or at least the day before. Then there's no fear for it, because at least you'll be using the regio until then and then have extended, no problem. But what is the fear is going to help, Take the number plate and hide the car in the garage. I know some people have those things, cars in the garage, but not number plate because they are all deregistered. So it's just have so many unregistered cars, We see somebody up near our neighbors like that. Got so many cars behind his backyard. I don't think most of them are drivable cars. So constantly things are ebbing or moving and changing. This life is fleeting away day and night. Dovatan and Dukbana, it is always moving like a stream over a great river. One goes on and not return again. There's never a moment that you are not going towards the inevitable death. Just like the river that's constantly flowing and going to the ocean mouth or in a gulf or whatever, likewise, you're always heading towards that, never a moment turning around. Not just some things only happen during the day, it doesn't happen at night, but your lifespan constantly ebbing. There's never a moment that it will pause or have a break. It's constantly depleting. And so just like a river flowing, there's no way the river will be turned back. It continues heading towards from highland and upstreams down to this, and then it mixes with other rivers, and sometimes and then eventually in the ocean with salty water. And it's got no identity of its own riverness left once it goes there. Likewise, we too will be heading to that inevitable end. 추준난기 냐타울 간신인진 다와이 첸데 힌두 통주는 델라가와 자미요스. So this human is like a fish in a shallow pool of water. Day and night, this life is passing away, because the less as the water decreases, the soon the fish will die out. It's like a shallow pool of water. our water in the pool, our lifespan is not increasing, it's always decreasing. We are like a fish in the shallow pool. What subject of rejoicing is there in so brief a thing? So the time that you will be in that shallow water is very limited, because water itself is getting shallower and shallower, and so there isn't anything that that'll keep you there. So that's why one can't say, I'm still young, I'm still doing this, and then ignore the spirituality, as if some people who it should be done only when you're old, or like that. One should practice. Buddha felt that he got to leave at the age of 29. Even that he felt he was leaving a little bit light, and he didn't waste his time, and that's why he knew that life is impermanent. You know? When he saw these examples of impermanence, he knew it was he subject to death, like himself. He says, I too am subject to impermanence and death, and parting and so on. So therefore he didn't delay, he didn't ignore, but he straight away went on. He didn't say, I'm still a youth, I have still many years to govern the kingdom and so on. He felt this is just like prison, this is just like a distraction for him to stop from doing the holy work. And he therefore, however unpopular his decision may have been, it had to be done. Often it wouldn't suit to the worldly people. You will not please anybody when you do the right Dharma thing. These days, when every story of Buddha's life is a cause of inspiration. Wow, such great wisdom and insight and compassion. Due to the greatness of his compassion, he risked all the opposition and ill treatment that he may receive during his those times. He certainly did, but he never mind. He's not going to cry over that. That's nothing, you know. So all the abuse, all the harm, all the bad reputation he received from leaving, he was not minding all of that, because his intent was so according to the way of the Dharma that he was not minding any of that. So the chiva imbechu lundo yonsu gawa niki chang de nyonji nagi sogen jig but his end of life is death. This body bent down by age, this receptacle of disease is rapidly wasting away. This mass of pus will soon be destroyed. Mass of pus means bag of pus, bag of blood, I suppose. If you don't think it's pus yet, it's a blood. So therefore, almost developed treating the body as not an object of attachment, but objects of almost unpleasantness. And how come one gets so attached to this, protective and try to protect the unprotectable, you know? Try to do the pleasant things that is so unpleasant. Any part of the body is unpleasant. It's completely fragile and weak, and it is all there. You know, it's all, anatomy says it all. Anatomy basically is showing how lack of entity that is enduring strong that body is. But due to our food and medicine and care, the body is nowadays proving to be a little bit much more healthier than before. But still, no matter how much 40 years, 30 years, people are living longer than before, but that's about it. Then after that, it's just an object of suspicion. As soon as we die, the body is straight away curtain, put in the box. Don't want even dare look at it. You know, it was so beautiful only a moment ago. All of a sudden, it's just like you can't even dare to look at the real thing. And that's what actually it is. When there is no spirit in the body, it is basically remain. The remain consisting of the skin all the way into the fluids. And the skin is only the bag. All the internals are fluid, and which therefore are fluids of the body, which is blood, and so on. So therefore, the attachment to a body that is none other than the composite. Body is a bag of things. It's not a single entity that itself is from its own side. It is made up of many, many amazing things that doesn't seem to be anything from itself if it wasn't supported by these. Like the thigh bone is nothing very strong unless it got the shin bone, and with the kneecap. If there's nothing there, no matter how good your thigh bone is, it's just unnecessary piece. It got no use. So it wasn't the leg, wasn't the shin bone, ankle, and the kneecaps. If these aren't working, the actual bone of the leg has got no use. So basically, they all like that. So this is not to sort of make it very morbid or unpleasant, but that's fact. That's Dharma. Dharma is the tale's fact, And ordinarily deluded people think body is pleasant and it's desirable, and then develop clinging and attachment to it, Sure, our body is a receptacle of our life, and we still want to protect it, and we want to feed it, wash it, but that's about it. But not anything excessive go beyond that, it becomes cause of incessant suffering and incessant self-punishment. And that very body that you care about suffers. They like to please the body. They feed things, they drink things, thinking they're looking after the body. But the very thing they give the body is destroying the very body. So that shows there isn't anybody home who has a brain, who knows what to do with the body. So when one understands this, then the teaching is usually very, very, it's hurting. It hurts you. It hurts your pride, hurts your weaknesses, and highlights our weakness. Then it's teaching, they say. Teaching has to be, then it's timeless teaching. Whoever hears it, they can relate to it, how true it is, but yet most people don't see it. Alas, he says, alas, this body will soon lie on the ground, unnoticed, empty, senseless, thrown away in a cemetery like a billet of wood. Yeah, completely discarded. And have you seen those bodies? Just these days, of course, they have people who handle it nicely, wear a nice uniform, bring stretch limousine that the person never got to use in their real life. Put in this big stretch limousine, so they don't want to know that's happening. So deceptive, we don't get to see the real face of the dead. It's really, really liberating. It's good to look at the face of the dead, particularly if you know them. How different they look. How personless they are. It is completely empty of the person or the uncle, the father, that you thought you had one. Yes. If the consciousness wasn't resident, there is no person that is in the body. That is not in the head, that is not in the leg, that is not in the hand, that is not in the whole body. There is no self there. Yeah. It's just completely empty. He says, it's empty. Yeah? Alas, it's unnoticed. They not even notice. People even notice, they just want to ignore it. Isn't it? They just want to ignore it. They will quickly put a blanket over it. Yes. So it's completely no use. Like a billet of wood, a piece of wood you throw away, Yeah. And that is what actually we are. So there is nothing that is real. So this teaching is all about non-attachment to self. Because people, even if we fear something, it's because we think there is real self. Because we think the self is real, therefore we identify that with body. And when we know that death is not a death of self, but a death of what you thought was real. There is no self. It's just a concept of life and death. The body itself got no sign. Some people, due to attachment, they embalm the body, they do all sorts of things. But the body is completely object of suspicion, fear, anxiety. You will have to pay people to take it away. People you pay to invite them to come to you. Now when they did, you have to pay to take them away as soon as possible. No matter how much they charge. You have no self because you're relieved of the no self. You're relieved that the body isn't there in the home. People can't handle with a dead body. You know? Dead body is a very obvious revelation of what actually is. It is. When we don't know that, we are heedless, we think it's real, we think it's self, we think it's truly existing, we think it's beautiful, or we think it's desirable, and we might even see it's desirable. When you think of it carefully, there's nothing desirable. And then when you lose it, there's no sense of sadness. You can't lose nothing. You can't cry for losing nothing. But only when you're attached to, then you think you lost something very valuable. You know, people still couldn't cope. Years after someone's dead, they're still crying. They still think they lost that thing. The real thing is love or kindness. This we can still practice. With anybody, we can practice kindness. If the person who died was a kind person, kind to us, then we should practice that kindness with others. Then that's the real value of having someone who was kind. But not by attachment to them will empower us at all. We think we are deprived of them, therefore we are now self-pitying. And that's the devastating about that, is we become more suffering because we don't have them. So that's a terrible suffering, as we care for them. It's not the case, Now it's talking more before it's dead. He says, continually afflicted by disease, always excreting, always excreting filth, any urinating. This body, undermined by age and death, what is the use of this body but cast away? So actually this body is the constant bag of oozing things. If it's not oozing, at least painful. It's always painful. Always any of the orifices, all of them excreting something. From the eyes, ears, whatever comes out are waste. Just small things here, from things here, and big ones downstairs. We call the big one that one. Constantly, we have attached bathroom to take care of that. We have toilets to take care of that. So that we can quickly just do the disappearing act. That's what the body is. That's what we are back off. What is use of this body but cast away? So cast away non-attachment is. It doesn't mean you should sort of misuse the body or harm yourself, anything like that. It means do not do an attachment to a thing that is not worthy of getting attached to. If you can take care of it, live longer or whatever, sure, keep it clean or healthy or whatever, sure. But don't ever suffer due to attachment to the body that is them itself so fragile, so untenable. One part of the body is good, the other part is not good. One part is patched, the other part is weak. So there is no real part of the body that is everlasting. It's not a skins peel off, nails cut off, hairs cut off. Basically every bit is slowly cutting off, body, hair, basically, particularly hairy people know. People who are hairy people, they know how much hair they're casting every day. But people who are after 45, you wouldn't believe how much skin shafts we are dropping every day, You have no idea. They're all dead body. Newton jiksing nawatan naktan dembe lundi ruptan dewa lamepa shicho dun yewa gi. This swiftly decaying body means this body is constantly getting aging and decaying, is possessed by sickness and full of disease, full of pus they call it. This strive for the purpose of accomplishment, excellent happiness and excellent peace. So it means while you are still have this body with you, instead of getting attached to this untenable vehicle, which is only a bag of illness, bag of all sufferings, and strive to the practice of Dharma while you have this vehicle with you, but do not become slave to it. This only is a vehicle, but you can use it to practice Dharma, and therefore don't say I am sick, I can't do this, I'm this. But what are you gonna keep the body for if you can't practice Dharma with it? Just to feed more and produce more pus. Produce more oozings. So therefore, practitioner Shantideva says, I have had many lives so far. I have failed to use them, most of them in good use. This time, if I can practice Dharma and let it be, be diminished by the practice, so be it. And so, the practitioner is tolerant with elements, not lazy, not procrastinating, and very diligent, whenever, wherever, This is Gungatan and Chigatan, Ergatan, Erkandida Chawashi, Chiba number same Chib, Barjetoma Judo. Now this is talking about thinking, I'll do this, such and such deeds in the winter, in spring, and in the summer, I'll do this. The foolish fail to see the impending danger. So he makes plans, I'll do this. The real practice Dharma hasn't been put in place. It's not happening in summer, it's not happening in winter. Winter is too cold, summer is too hot, spring is too nice out there. Autumn you must go to floor yard or whatever. So there is no time for the actual practice of Dharma. Every season is to do something out there, but there never seems to be right season to practice Dharma. For the deluded person who doesn't understand the impermanence of it, is never a season convenient. He doesn't see how all these excuses, all this procrastination he's making is actually fooling himself. Such childish people do not hamper their own spiritual growth by saying every season is inconvenient. The morning is too early, dinner is too late, midday is too hot. Wow, weekday is too busy, weekend is also very busy. So there's hardly any time that is convenient to practice. Once a week, twice a week, even that we have to argue because we do not know how to prioritize our spiritual practice. There's never a winter that is free. There's never a summer that is free. It's always inconvenient. For the person who doesn't know, he he doesn't realize. He put so much worldly duties in place, what to do in winter, what to do that, and so on, but never seems to a season or moment that is appropriately suitable to practice Dharma when they don't understand impermanence. Bhutan Norchuk Jorbala, mi yin nam chabe, chidakine lanendo, nyadon chun debahin. He says, those who attach to family and material possession will be robbed by Lord of Death, like the sleeping villagers are inundated by the flood water. So, the one who is attached to these worldly things, then they're never free to do the work of the Dharma. And their attachment to the worldly possessions and loved ones will make themselves completely unaware how quickly, how punctual the Lord of Death is. And you will be robbed like the flood that floods the villages in the overnight. So then it will be too late. So hence this teaching on the impermanence is about be mindful what to do that are very necessary and what not to put too much worldly emphasis to worldly materialistic duties, because one day one will be only deceiving oneself, putting so much effort in such mundane, useless, futile, meaningless activities, while ignoring the very important task of living and loving that one can actually do. Chivetula papana punam kyapsu minjurushin payam mai mi kyula kyapsu yurwa me. Now this is talking about when at the time of death approaches, no children can save one. Neither can your father, nor can your relatives. You have no refuge whosoever. So it's talking about however much time we may devote to look after others and children and so on. Sure, they may be our duty, but don't think that they will be of any help when you die, when you have to face the karma you created on behalf of them. They will not be there to share your karma you created. You can't say, I did this for my son, and that. No, you will not see any trace of it. Because that only refuge is mind, which is non-attachment, non-procrastination. If you have not heeded to them, then you will be completely unprotected. There are none of their relatives. However many you had, however many loving they were all surrounding you around your bed. They all didn't want you to go, but none of them can do a thing. The rich can't ransom you with money. The eloquent couldn't argue on you for fast runner couldn't take you on their shoulder and hide you somewhere. The Lord of Death can't find you. So what are they for? None. They are completely helpless. There are no one is able to prevent you from death, prevent you from facing the inevitable. You have no refuge whatsoever, had you not practiced Dharma. Of course, this means those who practice Dharma, even if they did argue against themselves, not putting so much effort into unpleasable worldly sentient beings, and they never will please themselves, no matter what you do. But if they're only able to interfere with your spiritual practices, and which you're not doing for your own benefit, for your own refuge, for the benefit of all beings, that they can vow, that they can interrupt. But when you need, at the time when you need, then they're completely powerless. They may even blame you for dying. Yeah, they do. So you can never do anything right. Even die, they blame you. They're still angry that you died. Yes, yeah. As if we had choice. As if we died because we can't be bothered looking after them or something. Not like that. No, we died because our karma and marriage and life were all exhausted. We would like to have stayed as long as we could, until the youngest one got married and become rich. Yes, there is never a convenient moment that you can die that is convenient to others. because they are all attached to each other, and they're only going to be cause of sufferings. Going to be only cause of suffering. Dini chawa chis dönde cha deda chenen dagin dijashi. Deda mende yonso shomban gadan nawe chiwe monjom yours. Now this is talking about as a man makes a big plan, as a person makes a big plan, he's like thinking, after I have done this, I'll do this. Then after that, I'll attend to this. Thus he will be overcome by old age, sickness, death, having never finished anything really at all. All the things that he did, it was never finishable by doing them. It's completely wasting your time and energy. But in the meantime, they all become a perfect obstacle for you doing the Dharma. That's all they did. But actually, there isn't anything you can show that was really worthwhile, because they're never finishable by doing. We have a saying in Tibetan, deeds never done by doing, but only by leaving it. So just saying, enough, I've done my enough, and now we'll focus on this. Then you have a sense of real having, that you're able to let go and give up. Then you have really done it, because then you have not procrastinated, you have not ignored or distracted by that. You actually have prioritized what you really want to do without any compromise to yourself. The tartao to tenzin laga nyambar sho, zomba kiela, kietangave tamadu, do the namdan chumbar tanyebe, gelon dago, kishi parondo wari ki, 43. This is, therefore, give yourself to the uneasing joy of meditation. So here it says that, therefore, having considered all of these 42 verses above, give yourself to your daily practice of unceasing joy of meditation. Meditation on impermanence, for instance. Then when things do snap off. You're not attached, you're not suffering, you don't feel beaten, you don't feel cheated, you don't feel abandoned, you don't feel robbed, you don't feel failed. And is unceasing joy of meditation, because impermanence is much more joyful cause of meditation. See the end of birth and old age. Let the bhikshus pass beyond birth and death. So you must learn to overcome such demons, such hosts of harmful things that are against you, and then you will definitely go beyond the birth and death, become a arhat. So that concludes the first chapter, the chapter on impermanence, 43 verses, exhaustively. So at least when we are thinking, listening, reading, and reflecting on this, it will be pointing to us certain areas about which we are upset or attached or sad or unhappy. We can learn to not let those age us, but we should just say, oh, this teaching is for me to look and make preparation to think like this, and then not ignore these teachings, not ignore how to let go, how to not imprison oneself, not to put oneself in the wrong kind of line of thinking, but how to train our mind to meditate on the impermanence, not only when some unpleasant things happen, but even when pleasant things happening, we should know these too will last not long. And they don't. There's no fault of yours, no fault of others. And then there is no attachment, no room for attachment developing. You're already telling you these two won't last long, so you will share it and you will benefit to yourself and others whatever temporarily they are able to. But in the meantime, don't let that become an interruption for your following the way of the enlightened ones. So then we at least daily discipline of study, meditation, practice, incorporation with everything we do, you know. We no longer have the same way of relating to some bad remarks by people or negative remark, criticism by people. You don't get offended by them. You really won't get offended by them. Only when you attach to self, you will get offended, no matter what they do. When you're not attached to self, whatever they do is no cause of sorrow for you. But you're clinging to the I and permanence of its name or its color or its shape or form or health. That is the cause of real suffering. That's real cause of suffering. But so why meditation on impermanence is better than honoring the Buddha is because when you do meditate on impermanence, you will, free yourself from sorrow. You will make the sorrows shorter and lighter, and actually make them impermanent. When you can make your own suffering impermanent, that's pretty good, isn't it? because suffering is mainly caused by lack of realizing impermanence as impermanent things. We want that to last long, when it doesn't, And so we don't complain that it didn't last long, because teaching says it won't last long. And even the good things are happening, we don't get attached to them. And it's not because we can't enjoy good things. We still can enjoy, but even enjoy bad things as well. Very good, So there isn't anything you don't enjoy now, because as long as it's impermanence, as long as the impermanence the main thing, and then everything is okay. Even difficult things are no longer unpleasant to you. They actually liberate you from attachment. So why is it much more meritorious thing of impermanence than bowing down to the Buddha? Is because you will have the emotional merit and intellectual clarity to predispose this way, and then have a true refuge. Because otherwise, they say you can harm, or you can other people harm you physically, you feel hurt. You're harming yourself more emotionally than others can harm you physically. But if you think of impermanence, no one can harm you to the extent that you can help. So if you have refuge, then no harm is possible, because you're no longer harmable now. You have true refuge. That's true refuge. Refuge isn't some prayer. Refuge is how you predispose your mind in extreme situations, and still remember impermanence. Not let oneself become imprisoned by attachment and so on. So this we conclude here.